This episode is brought to you by BigMooseCoffeeCompany.co. Pals, welcome to another episode of Everything Endurance. Thank you for joining us once again. Pull up a chair, make yourself at home. What an outstanding couple of weeks it's been in ultra running. I don't know if you guys have been paying attention to what's been happening in ultra running over the last couple of weeks. If you haven't, I don't know what you have been reading or watching or whatever else it is that you do. After months of race cancellations and lockdown restrictions, we've seen over the last few weeks, as those restrictions lift a little bit and we're able to get a bit further out and about into the world, those race-starved runners have been out there knocking off fastest known times right, left and centre. It is officially FKT season at the moment. Just this week, for instance, Sabrina Verjee here in the UK, she knocked off a full round of the Wainwrights, becoming the first woman to run that round. For an idea of the ridiculous scale involved in that, go back and find our episode on Paul Tierney, who's the current overall record holder for that round. That is an unholy amount of running and climbing over more than 6 consecutive days. So massive congratulations to Sabrina for getting around that. What an outstanding effort. I know it wasn't exactly the run that she wanted, and there was a bit of injury trouble along the way. Next time though, and she has absolutely planted a flag there as what we already strongly suspected, just one of the best British female ultra runners that there is. John Kelly has just, in fact at the time of recording, he'll be fast asleep at this point, I imagine, having just managed to bag himself the fastest known time for the full Pennine Way, which is incredible. You'll recognise the name John Kelly, no doubt. We interviewed him just after he won the Spine race back in January, which I know feels like 10 years ago now, but isn't that long ago at all. He's also one of the only people ever to have finished the Barkley Marathon. So, I mean, already a runner making himself into something of a legend, and he's just sealed that place again. So, yeah, rest. I bet those legs are weary, mate, but congratulations. What an absolutely epic effort. There's more in the US. You've got the likes of Corey Waltering, knocked off the Ice Age Trail, and that was about 1,200 miles of running in about 21 days, and that was somebody else who had to finish that whole run with a quite bad ankle injury by the sounds of it, so well done for toughing that one out. And right now, as I speak, in fact, let me do the maths quickly on this. This will be going out on the evening of the 17th of July. So yes, literally, as I speak, our very own Adam Kimball is out there on the Tahoe Rim Trail. I'm very excited for him. This is Adam Kimball. If you don't know who he is, go back and look for our episode with him. Since we recorded an episode with him, he's actually come on board and joined Beyond the Ultimate as a race director. He has an encyclopedic knowledge of Brooklyn Nine-Nine quotes and possibly the loveliest hair I've ever seen on a human. The mighty Kimbledore is out going for an FKT held by a little-known runner by the name of Kilian Jornet. So wherever you are in the world right now, if it's still, Friday the 17th and you're one of our amazing people who subscribe to this and grab it as soon as it comes out, then I beseech you right now to beam some positive energy over the ocean to Adam. He's going to need some strength in his legs over the next couple of days. No doubt that's going to go well for him. In fact, you know what, Kimball, if you happen to be listening to this, if you do well enough, I might even let you back on the podcast. Today, we're going to talk to a runner who has just bagged one of these amazing FKTs that I'm talking about. We're going to be talking to somebody who already held the Winter Bob Graham round record. So this is a runner with very, very strong form, and we'll go into this a bit more in the episode. He has an incredibly illustrious CV as a runner. What he's just managed to grab for himself is the record for the most peaks in the Lake District climbed in a 24-hour period. And that number is 78. And 78. Now, anyone who knows the Lake District will know that those are some serious lumps that he's run up and down in that time. We'll go into all the mathematics of it, which is absolutely staggering as we go through this episode. I know you're going to enjoy this one. Kim is a lovely guy to talk to, really inspirational. You know what? Without further ado, let's go into it. So here we have, for your listening pleasure, Kim Collison. Kim, how are you doing?
Pretty good, really. As the days are going by, I'm getting better and better. My legs are becoming less stiff, and I'm getting really hungry now, and trying to catch up on all those calories that I've expended on Saturday.
Only now getting hungry. We're on, oh my days, I'm not entirely sure. We're on Tuesday, aren't we? Wednesday. I've lost a day.
I think it was yesterday I really started to get the hunger. Before then, my stomach was just still a little bit gurgling and not quite right and ready for it. But yeah, now I'm just eating every 2 hours, I think.
And I don't blame you. You've got a lot of calories to replenish. So for anyone who's dropped into this and skipped the intro and somehow doesn't know what colossal thing you did on Saturday, what have you just done, Kim?
I have just climbed 78 Lakeland peaks in under 24 hours to set a new record for the challenge, which involved roughly 96 miles of running and 12,000 meters or 39,000 feet of ascent, and descent, I think, is key as well in this challenge.
Absolutely. Bless your quads at the moment. I mean, those numbers are just colossal for anyone listening to this. And, we've spoken to some people who've done some absolutely enormous events on this show. And that is a colossal amount of climbing just to fit into that period of time. How long had that record stood before you came at it?
It was set in 1997. So what was that? 23 years.
Wow.
Set by Mark Hartel.
Okay, fantastic. And you're based in the Lake District, yeah?
Yeah. I'm based at the bottom of Blencathra. So I've had, luckily, during a lockdown, I've had a fell to carry on training on, so I could run out my door and up onto the hill and do my hill reps and go a few miles without having to see anyone at all. So that was good. So I could train in the right place.
That's incredible. So even at the point in lockdown where you were only able to get a little way away from your house for a little amount of time, you had a training run outside your door.
Yeah. Literally out my door, and I'm onto a fell. So I could train still.
You are living the dream, Kim. That's absolutely fantastic. And, for any of our listeners outside the UK, and there are some, I learned recently that we've got one listener in Ecuador. So hola to our Ecuadorian listener. The Lake District is, and, there'll be people in other areas of the country that'll argue with this. And I'm a Peak District person myself. That's where I'm based. But the Lake District is just the most colossal place in England, at the very least, for ultra running. You've got a wonderland of peaks and fells just outside your house. What always gets me with these big Lake District based records is how much of a community it seems to be. Like you all seem to know each other and move in the same circles, breaking each other's records over and over again. Does that sound fairly fair?
Yeah, it is a really small, a community where everyone knows. There's the local clubs like Helm Hill and towards Kendal direction, and Keswick and Eden Valley, and then my club Borrowdale Fell Runners, and everyone gets passionate and races hard, but they're also happily share stories and afterwards, and come and help others achieve their challenges, whether that be Bob Graham or a Lakeland 24-hour record or whatever it might be. They're more than happy to help others, usually, if they can.
Incredible. Are you from the Lake District originally, or were you one of those people that gravitated there for that reason?
No, I'm originally from Hertfordshire, and grew up at Tring Running Club, which was my club I grew up and running at, and sort of inspired that little bit of a passion to the mountains early age. And then about 12 years ago, I relocated to the Lake District and became an outdoor instructor at the Outward Bound Trust.
Oh, fantastic.
So I was, taking and inspiring youngsters, young people to go out in the mountains, camping, climbing, all that side. So, the Lake District's my new home for a long time now.
No, fantastic. And, you're in such a stunningly beautiful area of the country there. How could you not be going out and running? But, we have skipped quite far ahead, and I want to come up to your records and stuff in a little while. But, I do this with all of our guests. I'd like to go back a little bit further because, the idea of running 24 hours solid over the kind of terrain you're talking about is far and away beyond the limits of what most of us can imagine putting our bodies through. So, there's quite a journey that comes before being able to knock off a record like what you've just done. So where does it begin for you? When did you start to really engage with sport? And was it always running for you?
Yes, I would say it was running has always been the primary sport in my life. From secondary school, I learned that I was good at running and went out running with my dad. And went to the local running club and started to run and build endurance even at that young age. And then, I knew I had. I was really good at cross country. I remember one year at school winning all 6 cross country races within my year group. That we had, and that sort of ability to run off road and have that endurance stuck in my mind. I wasn't any good or that good on the county level or national level at that age, but I knew I could run, and so that was always there. But I guess early 20s. That I had that period of university travel and not running and not being that sporty at all. I was still outdoorsy, and but I wasn't. So I wouldn't call myself a runner or training then. So I think I would say 2007, when I first came back to the Lake Districts. I think a year before I did a orienteering race, and sort of like a green color coded sort of the middle of the range orienteering course, and I was getting beaten by 60-year-olds and 70-year-olds in that class, and I was thinking something's going wrong here. I'm better than this, and I guess that was the initial spark in my head to go, actually, let's start doing this. I enjoy this.
That was where you sort of started putting some structure to it, maybe.
Yeah, and actually training and perhaps cutting out some of the excesses in life that you focus on when you're a bit younger, and are more of a priority. So that once I moved to the Lake District, I was either out running, out biking, out paddling constantly. And because I'm quite a driven, competitive person, I would do lots, and slowly, by doing lots, you kind of start pushing yourself, and you start getting better, and you get fitter, and then slowly you realise, actually, I'm pretty good at this.
Oh, well, not so slowly. If you're talking about sort of 2008, 2009, when this was really starting, from the scant research I've had time to do this morning, you were already, British trail running champ was 2013 or 14?
14, yeah.
14. And that was a Lakeland 50 win as well.
Yeah, that was, wow. I guess that was my breakout ultra run performance that I actually did it. And you start to realise, okay, yes, I'm really good at this running, lark.
You've mentioned being driven in the sort of competitive side of this. Is that a big driver for you? Is it winning the races and grabbing these, or for you, is it just about being out there? Is it the love of the hills that comes first, or is it the competition for you?
I would say it's more the love of the hills and getting the best out of myself is more important than, I mean, I do love the competition and that racing and that challenge, but it's not the be all and end all. More than actually being out in nature. I love the process, the training, the time out over and over and over again, and doing that, and then trying to see where that stacks up.
And how incredibly useful that you do enjoy that process so much. If you can take joy in the training, then you're going to keep knocking off big records like this, aren't you?
Yeah, if you don't enjoy the training and the process, then maybe I think it's time to move on and find a new challenge to funnel that energy and passion.
Absolutely. You mentioned before you were an outdoor instructor for the first time for a good long while you were in the Lake District. In the last couple of years, you've been coaching. Is that right?
Yeah. I guess I got to the end of 10 years outdoor instructing, and I thought, okay, that's the passion's not there the same as it was. There was a lot of short-term development. You see the kids for a week, do your best with them, give them this amazing experience, and then you wave them off and you never see the outcome. Whereas I wanted to get that long-term development of others and see if I could apply my passion, which is running and endurance, and then see if I could combine those two passions to get the best out of other people as well as me. So I decided to try, and over the last couple of years I've developed my business and to have a good team of athletes that I coach that allows me to try and get results with those guys.
And I think it's just amazing as well to get a little bit of an idea of what your day-to-day looks like, because I think there's a perception among those a little bit, a step outside the ultra running scene, that the people who are out there setting these really extreme records will be living in a similar way to the sort of athletes who are out there breaking speed records, your Usain Bolts of the world. It seems unusual that someone out there who's knocked off 78 Lakeland peaks in 24 hours shouldn't be living a lavish lifestyle surrounded by sponsors and being looked after. But actually, this is an enormous amount of training, an enormous amount of focus that you fit in around an everyday life. So what does a training week for you look like at its peak when you're coming up to a record like this? How much time are you actually spending out there?
I think the peak 4 weeks I did not so long ago were in the 20-hour to 24-hour range of time on feet. And I think my biggest week was maybe just over 100 miles and 10,000 meters of ascent. And then the other 3 weeks after that were either 100 miles, 90 miles, and 8,000 odd meters. So that's a lot of running distance and ascent over specific terrain. So that's a whole day chunk of time out of a week. Then you've got to sleep and try and do your job, which brings you an income, which is really important to keep doing what you want to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Pay the mortgage, pay the bills, do everything else.
Yeah, the hours that you're describing there are a fairly hefty part-time job on top of everything else that you're doing. Although I'm sure it didn't seem like that much of a chore at the time. But it's got to be quite a difficult balancing act. Do you find that that's the case? Because I mean, we interviewed Jasmine Paris, for instance, a while ago, just after her incredible win on the spine, and I don't understand when she slept. How do you juggle that enormous amount of timing alongside your life?
I guess in a way, for me, COVID has helped in terms of you had to you gained a bit of time in a sense, because you lose any travel time. You really focus on the routines that are really important to you. Structure your day that they all look the same day after day.
Yeah.
Okay, I get up early. I do my thinking work first thing usually. Then late afternoon I'll go out to run. Then I might come in and do a bit more work after the run. Go to bed early and sleep. Get up and repeat. And it's that sort of process. It's definitely got easier as a coach, because I'm mobile now, and a lot of it's remote. So you can juggle your time to fit the training. For 10 years, I would be doing cycling or running to work, doing a whole day out with kids, or 2 days out with kids, then running and biking home late at night, sleep, get up and go again. And it was full on. I mean, you were active, and you wonder how you got good without that lack of rest. And for me, that's been the difference this year, is actually being able to structure and get more rest and focus on the recovery side. That's helped keep me in a really good shape at 40.
Yeah. Which it very, very clearly has. Like that record, the maths stand for themselves. You've only got to go back to December as well. So we've talked about how, although it's hard to talk about COVID-19 as good news, it absolutely isn't. You've managed to find a silver lining in it, and this record kind of stands as a testament to that. But you've only got to go back to December last year for your Winter Bob Graham round, and that was pretty astonishing. What was that? 15 hours-ish? Something like that?
15:47 was the time, which on the list of all-time Bob Grahams stands in probably about the 10th quickest time overall. So yes, it was an outstanding time, and in winter as well.
Just to be clear on that, so I mean, it was in December, so no one's going to refute that was a Winter Bob Graham. But what exactly qualifies it?
So the one qualification is in the winter months, so from 1st of December to the 28th of February. And if it rounds in that time, it stipulates it as a winter round because of the hours of darkness. There is a midwinter stipulation as well, which is, I think, the week before the shortest day to the first good weather in the first week in January. So like a 2 or 3 week window.
Okay.
That calls it, that's the really short daylight. But during that extreme, you can get a whole range of weather conditions that, what you call winter, with snow and ice, or I got quite lucky in sense that it was cold and frosty, but without a wind. And then during the short period of daylight, it was sunny and reasonably nice. I mean, I had perfect running conditions on that day that made it possible to run such a quick time. With a head torch on. So. And my other Winter Bob Graham that I did 2 years before, I was wearing crampons for 90% of the day, and it was snow and knee deep snow and wading through, and it was just a totally different experience.
Yeah, I can imagine the time was a little bit slower on that one as well.
Yeah, it was. And it was probably, in some ways, harder physically, just because of that draining nature of wading through snow.
Absolutely. And I guess if you did get a very sort of frosty day in December, you'll have got harder ground as well, which is bound to work in your favour. Not to take anything away from that time for a second. But, I mean, that's... Sorry, go on.
I guess it depends what you want from a winter round. The first one was clearly about the experience of a full-on winter, and can I do it in those conditions and in those darkness. Whereas the second one was, I was going for a record for a time, so I wanted the best conditions I could possibly have within the set boundaries.
That's still a lot of variables to jungle. I mean, I know how changeable the weather can be just in the Peak District on a weekend. Like, you're still asking for a lot of things to come together at once.
Yeah, there's a lot of luck and a lot of weather window watching in the last week to see if it's going to align, and luckily it did.
Fantastic. So that was 15 hours 40 something, and that's an awful lot of peaks. That's back in December. Did that just not feel like enough? Did you finish that Bob going around thinking I can do more than this, or did you already have your eyes on this 24-hour record?
No, I finished that and I was really quite content and thinking, okay, now I've achieved that. It's like, okay, what's next on the agenda? What could I feasibly do? It did then cross my mind after that, because having read Mark Hartel's report and figuring out that it was roughly a 15.5-hour Bob Graham pace to do the 24, then do it for 24-hour records, it put my winter time that I did then in, actually I'm in the fitness that I could potentially do this.
So the maths had done it for you there, hadn't it? I mean, once you'd done that bit of mathematics there, I can imagine that must have just nibbled away at you. Like, yeah, I'm going to have to do this now.
Yeah, but it's, I kind of had a conversation with a friend, Adam Perry, who has been dreaming about this record for several years. And unfortunately, the conditions and the things haven't collided for him to make it possible. And he sat on the top of the last peak, Grisdale Pike, just as the 24 hours ticked over. So he worked out he was probably about 8 minutes from breaking the record at one stage. So this year he was going to have another go. So I thought, okay, it's his round. He wants to do it. I'm there to support him. And then maybe next year, maybe it's my go to give it a go, because that's part of that community.
Yeah.
Thing, you want to support your friends and help them achieve it. So I had set my goals on actually going and doing the other two rounds, the Paddy Buckley in Wales and the Charlie Ramsey in Scotland this year.
Yeah.
I thought, okay, maybe it's time to give those a go and complete the set. So I'd been planning to do those, and I was in Easter I was going to do the Paddy Buckley. And I'd been down in Wales just before lockdown doing the first sort of recce, and then everything changed.
Everything changed.
I reassessed for, okay, I've still got UTMB at the back of the mind. Right, let's reset the training plan towards that, and started back down at the bottom of where I wanted to get to an end result then. Started training away and slowly, and I thought, actually, eventually we're going to get unlocked down, we'll be able to get to Wales or we'll get to Scotland. So that was still on the back of the mind.
Yeah.
But it just wasn't opening up. And so this challenge started to creep more and more into my consciousness. And then opportunity came up that I could, about 4 weeks ago, actually I can do this now. With Adam's blessing, I decided and committed, right, this is what I'm going to try. This is the date, and let's organise a team. Let's focus on the recceing that I need to do for the extra tops and routes that I don't know, that are different from the Bob Graham round.
Yeah.
and go, okay, let's peak the training, focus on tapering and being ready for a day.
I have to say, obviously everyone's been stripped of their races this year. We're not going to be jetting off anywhere wild certainly not in the next few weeks, and we haven't been able to over the last few months, and we haven't been able to get together in these mass groups and do these big races. I mean, when I did the Lakeland 50 myself a few years ago, and I remember how many people were there during that event, and it's unimaginable just at this moment in time. But what we have seen as a result is a lot of these FKT attempts going on over the last few weeks, which has just been incredibly inspiring, because what you're realizing there is these communities of runners have still been working together behind the scenes and keeping their training up, and in a responsible and sustainable way under the current circumstances are now out there helping each other through these incredible record attempts. So, I mean, to look at your 24-hour record, how many people were involved in that? I'm assuming you had a pacing team.
Yeah. To make it possible, I need a pacing team of, I think I had maximum of 3 on a couple of legs at the end. And mostly 2 early on, just to keep the numbers minimal as possible.
Yeah, of course.
But still to be able to carry kit, to make the weights. You got to do this as light as possible, and they've got to help with your navigation, your food, your drinking, motivation, encouragement, banter, bringing you back down to earth, and keeping you on track. So yeah, I definitely had a good pacing team, and that was the key to the success as well. Getting the right people for the right legs. You've got to have some really, really quick runners for the early legs that can run 4 hours at near race pace.
Well, this is it. Your pace is there. You're talking about a specifically and very well trained group of people, aren't you? It's no mean feat keeping up with you at that pace for 3 or 4 hours when you're going at it for 24.
No, and especially because I'm tapered, full of adrenaline,
of course,
and with a goal in mind. So the hardest leg on this record is that first leg, but luckily I've got a really good couple of friends that helped and offered to help with that. George and then Martin came out and did that with me, and they were absolutely fantastic.
Excellent.
As were the whole of the rest of the team.
Well, there you go. And as I said, I love that those communities are still pulling together and doing this stuff. But we've talked about community, and that's wonderful. But it was your legs that carried you through this. So let's talk a bit about your experience now. There are some runs and races and whatever where you go in and it feels like everything's just aligned. I'm rested enough, I'm fit enough, I'm feeling okay, my stomach's fine, the weather's worked out okay. Was this one of those weekends, or was there a lot of trepidation as you sort of went to get started? And also, it's a 24-hour run. What time of the day did you begin?
3 a.m. in
3
the
a.m.
morning. Saturday morning.
So we're standing in the dark at 3 a.m. on a Saturday morning.
In a small village in the Lake District. About to set off on a thing that you just don't know whether it's going to happen this day. Many have tried and not succeeded. And the inevitability is the chances are that you won't succeed. But I got to that point of, if I don't try this now, I won't know, and I will regret it. A key bit was the confidence of a training run a few weeks before, where I went out purposely on leg 1 to see if I could run the leg with the splits.
Yeah.
And started from the start and ran hard, and getting to the top of Blencathra a few minutes up on what Mark Hartel had done made me believe that it was possible, that I had the speed I knew I had endurance, and then the last 8 hours will be, well, let's see. And you hope your guts get you through. So I was, standing there ready. I actually decided to bring the attempts forward a week. I had initially organised the team and paces for this coming Saturday, and I was getting to that point in my training and psychology that I was ready.
Yeah.
That I knew that I needed to go soon. And then I looked at the weather on the Sunday before and went, that's looking like it could be a really good weather window. It's still early days, but they look like there could be a high pressure ridge with not being too hot. My worry would have been that it was scorching hot.
And we've had some scorching hot weekends over the last couple of months.
As well as some really bad weather and wind and rain, which would have been equally as bad. So I suddenly went, right, that looks it. I'm bringing it forward. And then started the ring round to try and rearrange the support. I mean, I lost a couple, but I managed to replace and gain people.
I think that's another thing that is, not something that you'd consider coming from outside the sport, is that there isn't somebody to do that for you. You've not only got to do the training, you've got to then contact all those people and rearrange it if anything changes.
And then it was, quite a lengthy process of stress and anxiety, and tried to, can you do it? Are you available? And that process is takes time, but it's good. It's good to do it. People want to do it and they want to be part of it, which is fantastic. I even had someone actually, are you going for this record? Can I help?
Brilliant.
Two people. And that's what you want. People that really want to help and keen to do it. I imagine there could be people that could think about doing it in the future themselves. And I would be happy to get out there and go, okay, let's help them achieve. So I guess I was at the start. I was 4 days of total rest and focus. So I knew my legs were fresh, and I was ready to go. The mind was set, and I knew I had to go for it. So the clock ticked 3, and I went.
I mean, you sound like you were relatively confident at that point. How confident can you let yourself be at that point without running away with it? Maybe pushing out too fast if you're feeling very confident.
I was confident. I guess when you've got to go into something like this with confidence, with belief that you can do it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you let that doubt, that negativity get to you, and it will eat you, and you just don't keep up with where you need to be. So I knew that Mark, had to almost race the splits early on to keep on to Mark McDermott's times, to then be able to make sure he added his extra top. So I thought, I need to be able to be on top of his splits to even have a chance of adding a top.
Wow.
So, I probably did go off a bit eager, a bit keen. I think my first mile might have been a 6-minute mile.
Wow.
Along the A66 to get to the bottom of Lonscale Fell. But then I tapered it into a training area that I had practiced. I know what I can push and keep pushing without going into the red, and riding that final balance. And it was feeling smooth. It was feeling easy. I wasn't trying to race down all the hills. I was trying to keep it smooth, relaxed, but fast.
Yeah.
trying to think, actually, I need these quads for 20 hours later. That you still got to be able to tap and run all day long. And it was going brilliantly. Finishing that first leg and being a huge chunk up really on a very tough time.
Yeah.
Just then it adds to that confidence, that belief that this could be the day. You obviously know at that stage it's still a very long day and lots can go wrong.
Yeah. 24 hours is an awfully long time.
In any ultra event, if you get it wrong and push too hard too early, it can go terribly wrong, spectacularly. And I've been there myself several times of racing off too fast and actually not finishing, and finishing in tears because I've done it again. But I guess with this, with taking away the competition element, I knew then it was just me against listening to my body and what I was feeling. And while I was feeling good, I was going with it.
And how would you, over the course of 24 hours, did you encounter any times through that 24-hour period where you were worried about your ability to do it? This sounds like things just came together and it sort of flowed very well throughout. But were there any sort of really dark moments through that time?
Yeah, there was quite a few dark moments that slowly progressed into the thing. I was probably the first resemblance of a wobble would have been actually climbing Broad Stand to get from Scarfell Pike to Scarfell. There's a little bit of a rock maneuver where I had someone on a rope to help make sure that I didn't fall off.
Wow.
And I was suddenly starting to get that little bit inklings of an energy crisis there, that I was not quite stable. But I managed to stave that off until basically Wasdale. And then suddenly I was faced with this huge wall of a mountain that a lot of people on above Graham know. Wasdale is sort of can be the graveyard of the Bob Graham round, where a lot of attempts, because you're just going from nearly sea level or 100 meters up this steep hillside. And when you're suddenly getting the stomach starting to fail, you're struggling to eat as well as you can, not everything's quite going down, and you're not got that same buzz in the legs as you do. That was the start of a low moment, which I managed to eat and managed to keep moving, keep pushing forward, and perhaps only lose a couple minutes on the schedule, which gave me a bit of confidence. And then I started to pick up again. At that point, I had originally planned to add the extra peak called Haycock, which was like the second next mountain after Red Pike. Normally on Mark's round comes Steeple, and then you're heading back towards Pillar and towards Honister. So I was going to try and add Haycock, but we were looking at Red Pike. I hadn't been that great, and it still wasn't great. I was looking at this big hill in the distance, and it looked like really ominous. So I thought, I'm going to leave that now and carry on this leg, because I know there's a second option that was potentially a very similar time to go and get it. Called Fleetwith Pike. So I would know more about how I was doing and whether I had that buffer to do the out and back to Fleetwith Pike. So I made that decision, and I did. I picked up and kept moving and kept on the schedule. That by grey knots, I thought, right, this is on. This is going to happen. I can make it happen. Let's go for this peak. I hadn't recce'd it because it wasn't plan A, and I had limited time to recce stuff.
Yeah.
However, my two pacers know the area, had been out, had been across it. So it was just like, okay, take me there, I'll follow. And they did. We may have not got the optimum perfect line. You might have been able to shave a minute or two off there.
For anyone listening and thinking they can do this quicker.
Yeah, they know there's definitely scope for someone. And then coming into Honister, I guess that was the start of the dark time where I really started to struggle. The clock, the 24-hour clock, started to loom bigger in my head. I now knew what I had to do to do it. There was no way out here now. You're committed to the extra peak.
Yeah.
You've got to get to the end within 24 hours.
And about how far into the 24 are you at this point in the story?
So what are we? We're probably 18 and a half hours into it here.
Which, if you're sat on your ass at home working at your desk like I do, 18 and a half hours of being awake is usually the point at which I'm like, I should really be in bed by now. So we'll get into sleep deprivation in a minute, but go on.
Considering I've been up since 1 a.m. the previous day as well.
Yeah.
You've got that building up. You're starting to feel unwell, the fatigue setting in the legs. So and you still got this schedule to hit. I was moving reasonably well, but I'd lost time on the first climb up Dale Head. That's that psychological point that you're starting to unwind. Has this fast start that I've done, is it now starting to pay its toll? And so you go through this process of up and down. Then the next top is not too bad. You manage to get that psychologically going, but maybe I put too much into that to try and make sure that I keep on the schedule. That that leg coming down into Honister, I suddenly get the jelly leg feeling. Oh my God, I'm on a wobble here. How am I going to get down this hill? And you just slow it down, try and get a bit more food in, keep moving.
Yeah.
And then I start to go into myself. I'm quite internal focused. Communication starts to disappear out.
Yeah.
And you start to get that tunnel vision of what have I got to do to get forward. Then it got dark. So you're in this whole world of tunnel vision. I'm moving up that first hill of the last leg with just over 4 hours to go, and Adam, my pacer, goes, right, Kim, you're not moving fast enough now. You've got to up the pace. We've lost time on this peak, and you're like, right, this is not going away now. I've done all this hard work, and then I started having this self-talk with myself. And I started getting vocal and using words like "you're strong," "you can do this," and actually vocalizing it. And then my support team picked up on that and helped me with that. So I would go through ebbs and flows.
Yeah.
1 minute, the body and the mind would win, and you start to slow down, and the stomach would take over. And then the next minute, you go no, and manage to open the stride up and push and think, actually, I can do this. I can overcome this. I can get over the mind. It's just my mind telling me to slow down. I've got more than this. And it would ebb and flow. And then the next thing, I'm going through this process, getting up towards the highest sort of points in that last leg onto the top of Crag Hill. And then the mist rolls in. And we suddenly, your head torch is hit with 1 meter visibility. You're reflecting off the fog, and you can barely see your feet in front of you.
Oh.
And you can start to feel the stress levels rising.
Now you've got to put a bit more thought into your nav as well, I suppose. So you've now got another mental element to fight when you're 22 hours on from the last time you were asleep.
So all I was being able to do was trying to focus on moving forward. And I had to rely on my pacers, Adam and Matt, to do the navigation. I had one Matt who took out the front in the lead to do the navigation to make sure he was hitting those tops, trying to get the optimum lines, and that makes all the difference.
Yeah.
And then Adam, who'd come down on Wednesday to recce the route, had made little notes of what to expect, where the best bit to run is, and so using those in coordination with each other, they did a fantastic job to just get me to the right places, on the right route. Any little mistake, that would have been it, gone.
And you're talking about needing that level of information to 78 times. That's one peak you're talking about now, where they're helping you find that right line and having the notes written and understanding it. There's a tremendous amount of experience between everybody involved that goes into something like this, isn't there?
Yeah. It's that knowledge of the Lake Districts, of the little trods that cut the corners. What side of a knoll do you go to shave a second off, and trying to learn those and work out. And this record was built on the experience and achievements of others as well. I had Steve Birkinshaw, a legend of previous Wainwright's record holder, had a go at this before his Wainwrights, and his knowledge of lines. What I did was, some of the things were slightly different from what he'd learned, because I'd learned on what Adam had learned over his years of trying to fine tune the lines. We both all built on Mark Hartel's schedule and what he had done, and then it's building on the knowledge of others from all their racing experience of, oh yeah, we raced between these tops on this fell race. This is the optimum line to go, because we do that all the time.
Yeah.
And it's just linking up all that little bit of history and knowledge to get the best route, you think. And sometimes it's just, you've just got to do it and move and not worry too much about the route, and just make a beeline, shortest distance to the route, rather than trying to dodge the rockiest ground to make a slightly better line. So it's trying to find that judgment.
Again, so many variables to juggle, aren't they? But so anyway, to go back to the mist, we're sort of 18-20 hours in now. The mist has come in, and you're having to feel your way through this. This is a difficult moment. You're still 4 hours away from finishing. How long does that go on? And when do you turn a corner and start thinking, hang on, I might have this in the bag?
Where did I think I started, after that point, I started to count and juggle, do the maths in my head, which was a difficult process.
Yeah, not easy at that stage.
And so I was starting to work out, actually, what do I need to do to make sure I'm on that last top with enough time to get down.
And I can say this as someone who's only been running for a limited number of years. I didn't realize how much mental arithmetic there was involved in it until I got into this game. But anyway.
So it was probably, I started to hit a couple of the splits, then I would lose some time. And it wasn't, I guess, until 3 or 4 tops out that I knew, actually, this is realistic. All I've got to do is get the right direction. I can lose a couple minutes here and there and still be on the last summit with enough to get to the bottom. But until you really are standing on the top of the last summit with 40 minutes to go, that you go, yes, this is going to happen today. Don't trip up.
Yeah, I mean, it's still never over till it's actually over, is it?
It's over. Yeah. And then you get that elation and that energy comes into your body, and you forget everything else. The pain starts to subside. You forget the stomach, and the vision, the tunnel vision starts to disappear, and the smile starts to grow. You become more chatty, and the I mean, it's still hard on the quads coming down off the top of Grisdale Pike all the way to the valley floor, but it doesn't matter anymore because it's nearly all over, and you just enjoy that moment. And it's just brilliant being able to run, and you always find a sprint finish when you're like that. I was running down the road into the village. It felt like a sprint finish. There was no Usain Bolt, that's for sure. But
no, but relative to the pace you'd been doing.
Relative to the pace I've been doing, I had managed to up the pace and finish in good style.
Isn't it amazing how you can always find a finishing gear? I've seen some people in stumbling territory on ultras suddenly manage to put in 100 meters when the finish line's just around the corner.
Yeah, which kind of helps put that mental game into perspective, isn't it? It's maybe that central governor of our heads telling us and trying to manage our efforts to make sure that we don't drop down dead, that we have still got something left until we know where that end point is.
Yeah, well, that's a very good point. You know, if you're only a couple of hours into the run, you've got to be wondering, am I going too fast? Because I might need this energy in 20 hours time. 23 and a half hours in, when you know you've done it, burn the energy, you know, enjoy the experience. You've earned this now. So where were you then at the point when you realized, I've got this? Where did this finish as such? Because once you knew you'd grabbed that extra peak, is that the point where you celebrate, or do you celebrate when you actually hit 24 hours?
No, the celebration was definitely when I'd finished. Yeah. When I knew running down the road that there was no chance that it wasn't going to happen. The first belief that it would happen was once I'd tagged that extra peak and I'd come into Honister, and I had a buffer in time on what Mark Hartel did to reach the finish line. But I knew that it was a real possibility, but I also knew that length of time, a hell of a lot could go wrong. And the wheels could come off and anything could happen.
The most poorly timed turned ankle in the world could still be there waiting for you.
Yeah, so I wasn't going to count the chickens, but I wasn't going to let it go easily, that's for sure. No,
I bet. So how did you celebrate? What did that... I imagine we're in the lockdown at the moment, so... You know, sometimes FKT finishes, there'll be people gathered and waiting for you at the finish line. This must have been a relatively subdued affair.
Yeah, relatively. There was a handful of my pacers, a couple that had come out at 3 a.m. to see me finish. There was Martin Stone, who was one of the pioneers of rounds and of solo rounds, and probably and was there for Mark Hartel and was part of his team when he did it.
Oh wow!
And was keeping Mark Hartel and Mark McDermott, the previous record holders, up to date on what was going on the ground. So he was he was there. My key support, my wife Alison, was there, which is really, really important. And also a young lad, Harry Eubank, had come out that I coach, and we go out running most weeks. Him and his mum and his sister had come out at 3 a.m. To witness the achievement, and that was just fantastic, because I know he's the future generation that I'm trying to inspire to that probably might be the one that breaks my record. I told him he's got a few years now to start wrecking the routes and the lines that he needs to do it. But who knows where that might spark. So that was great.
That's incredible. That's like the Lake District's version of the knowledge that like London taxi drivers have. You've got the cumulative knowledge of all of these runners that know every inch, every line of every rise, every lump. And you are now part of the community of people passing that on to the next generation of runners. I just think that's fantastic.
Yeah, well, that's part of it. Is if you no point keeping hold of it, move it, shift it, let others know about it, and allow everyone to get that same sense of pride and satisfaction. It's nice to have the record for now, but hopefully someone will come along and add another 1 peak or 2 peaks or whatever it will be in the future. But someone will break it, whether that's next week, knowing what's going on at the moment. Or
we are in FKT season. Who knows?
Yeah, or whether it's another 23 years. Who knows? But someone will come, and that's fine. And it'd be nice to be able to help them achieve it as well if they do.
Yeah, and I'm sure you will. I mean, that was a well-earned record, Kim, and I hope you get to hold it for a good long while. But I hope you also get to be a part of whoever breaks it next time around as well. We've talked about inspiration a couple of times on this, and you're obviously inspiring some new clients over through the coaching side of what you're doing these days. I mean, if there's something I've got out of doing this podcast throughout lockdown, it's inspired me to go out and start stretching my legs and actually doing some running again for the first time in a long time. And I think it's having that effect on a lot of people. But if people are sat out there now listening to this and dreaming about their own epic challenges and stuff, what would you say to them? Why? What do you get out of it? How is doing these colossal challenges that a lot of people would just look at the numbers and think you must be barking? How has it enriched you to be going out and doing these things? That's a horrible question to end on, isn't it? I'm sorry.
It is. For me, it's just that really big smile that I put on my face when I achieve these big things that I get. It's better than any other feeling in the world for me, knowing that all the hours and years of passion and work come down to those few seconds of finish line feeling of achievement, and that makes it all worth it. And you know, I mean, that's the same feeling of when you do your first challenge, when that was really hard, because it was really hard back then.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, once you have that knowledge and that experience, it's not so tough a challenge anymore. So you have to try and lift the bar a little bit to try and match that sort of feeling of challenge and reward. But you know, that's a small part of it. It's then also that process of getting to that gives you the endorphins every day. You get out the door, you get out into nature, you get into the mountains, or run along the coastal cliff path, or across the moors, or and you get that sensation of running that feels good. Sometimes you get that feeling when you're running, and it's just that pure flow, and everything feels easy and right. Other times it's hard and it's tiring and it's just not flowing, but it always feels good afterwards. Once you've done it, you get that, okay, that wasn't so good today, but it feels good now. And then you know that a couple of days of rest and things, you feel good again, and it starts to build, and it's that day in, day out feeling as well that makes it good.
Fantastic. It's a lovely answer. Thanks very much, Kim. I expected no less. And I guess, at this point in the podcast, I'd usually be asking people what they've got coming up next. And I realise that's a difficult question at the moment because none of us are sure if we're going to get to do any of the races that we had planned or anything else. But do you have any big projects in mind at the moment, or are you just happy with your feet up for now?
No, I'm happy with my feet up for now. My next challenge is trying to help my wife with her Bob Graham attempt.
Fantastic.
And so that will be my next main focus, and that will make me very proud if she gets round and does it. And so that's my little next game and goal.
Fantastic, mate. Well, best of luck to her. She's got a great coach. That much is clear to me after our interview. I'm sure it'll go really, really well. And look, thanks very, very much again for taking the time to chat to us today. It's been an absolute pleasure to hear about the experience, and congratulations again on the record.
Great. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to talk to you.
No worries. Thank you.